Welcome to Brand Talk, another way to talk. We're going to talk about business. We talk about brands that are in the news, your brand. We talk about brands that you use and you love every day. We have a different point of view. There's no yelling. There's no screaming. Just good old conversation.
Welcome to Brand Talk, another way to talk with your host, Dr. John Tantillo. And now here is the host of Brand Talk, John Tantillo.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Brand Talk, another way to talk. And here we talk about brands. And you will not be disappointed today because today we have a very special guest. And this guest is going to give you some tips and advice on how to jumpstart your career and what not to let happen. And without any further ado, let me read the biography. And after I read the biography of this short bio, because we want to get into the show, and I want him to tell it like it is rather than me telling it like it is. And without any further ado, let me read who we have on today's show. Mr. Vinay Singh is a corporate talent acquisition and diversity and inclusion strategist, as well as a Meta Trend Theorist. Wow, is that a lot to say? He has been a trusted advisor to hundreds of companies and placed thousands of job seekers. So he's the kind of guy you want to contact with after the show to give you advice and give you some good old executive coaching. A graduate of Oklahoma State University, NYU, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Mr. Singh studies at Columbia University and is the author of the book Your Future in Pieces: The Brutal Truth, How Ageism and Income Inequality Are Destroying America. It's with my pleasure that we welcome Vinay Singh to Brand Talk. Welcome, Mr. Singh, to Brand Talk. How are you today?
Thank you very much, John.
Okay.
Great. I'm doing great.
Oh, the V-Man. I love it. I love it. So what are you studying at Columbia?
I'm studying adult learning and leadership specifically. So that's a lot about digital tech and leadership theories, frameworks.
What umbrella does that fit into? Is that the communications umbrella? Is that the education umbrella? What school are you in? Are you in Teachers College?
It's a school of School of Organization Development.
Okay, and
social organization.
So is that psychology?
Yes, it would be.
See, yeah. I don't let the glasses fool you. Okay, so how would you? This show is all about brands. How would you, in 3 words, the elevator pitch? What is it that you do? How are you going to be able to help our listeners today after listening to us for an hour, hopefully listening to you more, but after listening to you, what are you going to be able to tell them what you do and how can you help them? How's that sound?
Yeah, sure. So, when you ask me that, I guess towards the end of the show, I'll get granular and I'll give specifics. But my elevator pitch is, I'm focused on promoting action for change of workplace discriminations that affect large populations of our society. My point is to promote engaging generational environments for fair pay policies through my books and my speaking and my consulting.
So what do you think is the biggest issue that corporations have to overcome? What are they doing all wrong?
So companies have been trying to solve for employee disengagement because statistically it pulls very high. It's embarrassingly high. And so that employee engagement is all about culture. And that's all you hear about. Companies want to solve culture, or companies want bigger and better culture. A lot of the same things keep bubbling up as the top issues of why companies can't solve it. A lot of it is pay for performance. Are employees being valued? Yeah, financially. Do they have confidence in their organization's future? Do they have confidence in their organization having their future in mind? So these are very serious, and it's not 1 or 2 years. It'll be here in 2020 and post COVID. It was here before COVID, so this isn't a COVID thing. People want a place to go to work that's exciting, that reflects what they believe in. So these are some of the components, some of the very root causes that I solve for.
Uh-huh. And what would you say? What I just asked about the corporations, what they're not doing. What do you think employees are not doing right?
I think that employees are not skilled in a lot of the components that they need to for today's digital world. And a lot of that onus is on the employee. So there is that. I think there's that disconnect. I think corporations need the employee to show up with ever more multitasking and multi abilities to get jobs done, because tech is in hyperspeed mode. You know that. It's not today. It's been in hyperspeed mode since the beginning of the 21st century. Yeah, I mean, it was in hyper mode in the 90s, in the late 90s. So this .com is gone. This hyper revolution of speed has not stopped. And so people need to have. I think employees need to be continuously reskilling their abilities.
Well, that's interesting. How do you motivate employees to do that when they just see it as a job as opposed to looking at it as a career?
Well, if you want to keep your job, it's important to have those skills. You and I were just talking earlier about how important it is to stay up on the digital technologies and to be very savvy in social media. So, but a lot of people aren't doing that. Well, they're missing the boat, right?
Right.
So that's a perfect example. The new technologies, if you don't want to learn how to, deal with texting or doing text interviews, believe it or not, today, you're going to miss those opportunities. And I've got even my own colleagues that are like, you know what, if I can't meet the person, if I can't at least speak up on the phone, forget it. But you can't have that mentality if you really want to succeed. If you got to do a text or a Twitter interview, do it. Just learn how to do it.
I could not agree with you more. And one of the great things about teaching I teach at Toro College, and is that they have what the term, and you'll correct me, please. It used to be called, when I was a graduate student, professional development. I don't know if they've changed it since. And professional development is for the faculty to learn new teaching techniques so that you're always fresh and you're always challenging students in the content that you present to them. I'm wondering whether or not you, when you're consulting with corporations, have those kinds of workshops where employees can be better at what they do?
That's excellent that you asked that question, John. Yes, they still call it professional development. If they want to call it something else, I always say it's the same thing. We shouldn't get on each other about this wokeness of not knowing a term. But bottom line is this. I believe that companies want to do more re-education, reskilling, professional development. It's all the same thing, but they simply don't.
Why? Why don't they? I'm frustrated about that. They should.
You're 100% right. They should, and they my opinion. It is my opinion that they say it is a cost issue, and my problem with that is that if I in my book I did a lot of research about the revenue generation from the Great Recession to today. Forget today's 6-month recession to today, 10-year period. Companies wanted to do and didn't do. Employees are polling at almost, the bottom 80% are polling at very, very low wage increases. Yet companies are producing astronomical billions, and not per year, every quarter. I watch the stock market. I watch CNBC every day. I mean, companies report $300-400 billion a quarter. Where's that productivity going? Because it's not going to reskilling employees, and it's not going into their pockets.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm a big believer in you just can't stay where you are. You'll always have to grow. You always have to get better at what you do. And I have this friend of mine. I'm gonna embarrass him. I'm gonna call him out. His name is Charlie Bindit, and Charlie Bindit. We used to play ball together, and we became very, very close friends. And he always pushed me on this social media stuff. And I always used to have to hear about Gary V and what a great, great marketer he was. And no matter what I did, I wasn't good enough to be, for Charlie, to be in the same breath compared to
Gary V.
Gary V. Yeah. So the point I'm making is that what he did is he pushed me so that in 2006 I had maybe 100 Facebook friends, and now I have over 5,000.
Right.
4 years ago I had 1,500 Twitter followers, and now thanks to my social media guru, David Pride, I have 50,000.
Wow.
And that's pretty good for somebody who's not always on TV or radio intermittently. The point I'm making is that you today, especially, and I ask, there's a question coming out somewhere here, is that you have to always rebrand yourself or take a look at what you've been doing and ask, is that working or not? And I ask you to respond to that.
That's exactly right, John. And so while you're thinking of exactly that question and what you're saying, at least consider, okay, what you're doing, is that where your audience is, or have they left and moved somewhere else? And that should be a reason enough for you to move with them. Because if you are still interested in doing whatever you're doing, but your entire audience left that stadium and went next door to the other stadium, you're speaking into a microphone and nobody's listening.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. You're so relevant. By the way, you're listening to Dr. John Tantillo and Vinay Singh, and this is BrandTalkk, another way to talk, heard every Thursday at 3:00 online, and we ask you to tune in and continue to tune in today's show. I got to be honest with you. Up to 2 years ago, and it was January 2018, and I was looking for a teaching job, and I was applying, and nobody was biting. I go. This is my favorite story of all time. I go for a job interview for this Catholic college in upstate New York. And what an interview I thought I had. And there's 4 people at this interview. I think the magic is happening. The attendants of this meeting or this interview are asking me questions. We're having a great time. And one of the interviewers says to me, "It seems that you're very passionate at what you do." And before I could get it out, the chairperson running it said, "Well, that's my problem with you, John. I think you might be too passionate."
Wow.
I just could not believe how ignorant that was. And if I didn't know myself better, I would have been a weaker person would have been destroyed. But I wasn't. I just said that person in my mind, of course, I just registered it. I put her in the category of being an idiot and moved on, and knew that I wasn't going to get that job.
Right.
But I just couldn't believe. I guess what I'm trying to say is you can't let the negative get in the way of you proceeding to the positive.
Exactly right. Being in the recruiting world that for 24 years, especially the first half where you did, I mean, it was all speaking on the phone at least, and even before it was so much face to face. I started to hear these kinds of reasons on why the candidate that I was representing was not a good fit, and they were just like what you just said. How is that even possible that I prepared so well? I'm such a perfect fit, but wait, I'm too good of a fit, or I'm too passionate about what you need me to be, right? And so we have to accept that there are things that we can't think are possible, or they're not so outrageous. There is maybe an underlying agenda. And I'll give you a perfect example. Being on the inside, I know that sometimes for a job requisition that is posted, a candidate has already been selected.
Oh, does that go on? I did not know that.
So there's a reason why you were just so passionate. John, you're just not a fit.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I was in politics many years ago, about 35 years ago, and something I was getting a little tired of these situations happening, where the candidate has been selected. So I see this job that's like 5 minutes from my house, and it would have been very convenient.
Oh, yeah.
I had taught there before, and I said I saw that the position was open, and I called the chairperson, and I did the unthinkable. I said, "Is this position filled, or do I have a chance?" And basically said, they were smart enough to say, "It's not the right fit." You're not the right fit. And I knew, and at that, well, I mean, why am I wasting my time? And maybe it's good. Look, maybe it's good for you if you're rusty to go on these goose chases. But at my particular time in my life, I don't want to deal with it.
Right,
I
right.
ask you to respond if you like. I just can't. I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because if there's one thing I do know is I am a pretty good teacher, and that I'm a likable guy. I'm a very fair guy, and for all intents and purposes, I can take very, very complex ideas and
Yep.
make them simple. And that's
Right.
yeah.
So you can translate complex issues for the layman or for the
Yeah.
common person that is not in technical. That's a talent. I have that too. But you mentioned something about well, we're talking about school and teaching and whatnot. So I just want to throw this out at you. Check this out. I was in a meeting with my colleagues, and so I'm in this EDM program. So in the adult learning and leadership, you have a 40 credit master's, you have 70%, a 70 credit EDM, and then 100% is the
Excuse me. EDM means what?
Master's of Education.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's another 30 for that, and then it's another 30 for the doctoral. So ultimately, you're allowed to build. One of my colleagues who just graduated in May, she's unemployed. So this is a Columbia Doctor of Education in Adult Learning and Leadership. May, June, July, August, heading into September. And so you'll be heading next week. She'll be into month 5 of being unemployed. I find that surprising, but not really, because I've already come to understand that there is a war against education, at least in this country. We're not big on promoting education. I find that to the detriment and demise of society as a whole, because many other countries are promoting their people's educations. And if you look at the last 10 to 15, 20 years, there's more foreign CEOs of American companies. So this isn't a smart thing to do by accelerating MBAs to 3 and 6 months, shortening the credits just to get people in and out the door. God forbid. I don't want my MDs getting half the education to work on me when someday I need something done. Bottom line is we're going to see more and more of this happening if we don't promote education. Because
What do you mean by promote education? I'm not quite got you there.
sure. So in the last 2 years, there's been more of a push of, have you heard of MOOCs, capital MOOC?
No.
Online classes,
Yes,
quick
yes.
online classes, do 4 or 5 of them, bang, you get your certificate. Have you noticed that MBAs, there are many schools that are, I'm not saying the prominent ones, but that are 1-year MBAs. My MBA was 2.5 years. Where did 65% of the material go? It's speed. Everything is speed. Everything is hyper. So now we're just figuring, all right, well, we'll shorten all the degrees. We'll charge the same amount. And are we releasing the same quality of people out into making decisions? I would say no.
Right.
So it's not a smart thing. You don't hear anybody in the government talking about promoting education. You don't really hear. We just talked about reskilling, didn't we?
Well,
And
yeah.
companies aren't doing it. So companies are making ridiculous productivity, compensation, and revenue. There can be no black and white dispute about the wealth generation of the biggest companies. I think the top 5 tech companies are now ranked at $2 trillion. Apple just went $2 trillion in revenue. Where's the money? It's not going to reskilling. We just said that in the beginning of this program. So we are not, education, my friend, is not trending.
I gotta think about that. And I wonder if that's whose fault that is, or if is it anybody's fault. I mean, the problem that I have found with some of my colleagues, not at Toro, but generally speaking, is that teachers are not what I would call professional human interactors, in the sense that they make the process fun or desirable. They they make it difficult, and they make it about them, and they make it too pedantic, as opposed to making it fun and enjoyable and exciting. So there's a term that I picked up from my dear friend um, uh, Lynch, uh, and he said that a particular that what you have to be in life is that you can't be a teller, you've got to be a seller. And I think that maybe teachers sometimes are too much on the telling side and not so much on the selling side, which is that what I want to do is I want to help you to get to where you want to be or get to where you want to go, as opposed to telling you what to do and how to do it. Go ahead.
I will say this. That is what the old school teacher was. That is not what school looks like today. I'm in Columbia. That's not the case. I finished in 2013 to 15. I was doing like a mini graduate program at NYU, but it was pretty comprehensive, and it took me 3 years to do 6 courses. But that wasn't the case then. So school and teaching has changed.
Yeah.
But I will say this: everything that you did say still stands in the corporate world. You're a person, I think, would say, my manager tells me what to do, doesn't collaborate with me and get my input to say, this is how I want to get there and help you get there. It's all about do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
Do as I say. And
Right.
that's the problem. That's one reason why I say employee disengagement consistently is so high. John, is between 60 and 80%. I mean, that's just not a good ratio.
Well, let's change it. And I mean, then that's what you got to do. I think you got to go around the country giving these seminars, and let's change it. I mean, education shouldn't be a 4-letter word, which it isn't. But I mean, or to teach shouldn't be a 4-letter word. Or
Yeah, that's
teachers,
right.
I mean, a more positive view of teachers and what they can do for me as a developing person and help me with my career. We're here talking with Vinay Singh. It's Brand Talk, another way to talk, here on John Tantillo's Facebook page and on his YouTube channel. And we ask you to, if you have any questions, to email us at doc@johntantillo.com. And let's see if that is in fact, those questions do in fact come through to us. You mentioned, I think, in one of the materials that you presented over to me, that your father had come from India, and that he lived the American dream. And my question is there such a thing today? And what do we have to do to get it back if it's not the same, or it is the same, or what are your thoughts? How has the U.S. changed since your dad came here?
Yeah. That's a great question, John. So my dad got a scholarship from MIT.
Oh,
he was
wow.
Yeah, he skipped five grades, but he was #1 ranked engineering student out of IIT Kanpur in the state of UP, which has as many people as Texas. So, or is the size of Texas, but has as many people as America, 300 million. So that's tough, right? you're number one. I asked my mom, how'd I get here? He was number one. That's it. Pack your bags. Let's go. You're coming with us. And then he got recruited right to U.S. Steel. Didn't need a resume. He's doing work on metallurgy. U.S. Steel was the biggest company. So that's his American dream. And now he's working for the Fed, for the Army. Once again, working on materials and that kind of stuff. But that's hardcore stuff. I would say that America, the Statue of Liberty represents the American dream. And let's be fair, unless you're Native American, we all came for the American dream. We're all here coming through, right? We all came on the boat, all of us.
Yes.
Unless you're red. And so that's how we all got here. So I can simply say this. 1 out of 2 of our youth, the Generation Z, which is ages 4 to 24, 50% do not believe the American dream exists for them. Another statistic cannot be disputed. America today has the greatest wealth inequality of all developed nations on earth.
Mm-hmm.
No dispute. So, if you just look at what I just said, no wonder the Generation Z that's already here doesn't think they're going to get it. Chances are excellent age discrimination will come to you before you hit 40. It's now all over San Francisco and Manhattan, and it's growing in the biggest cities. And I'm not talking about blue collar or uneducated. I'm talking about white collar educated techies. So this is what's going on. Do I think the American dream exists? For a few. And are we close? We are I think that there is a trend happening where we're just not so interested in welcoming 2 foreigners, even though we are all coming from foreign ancestry. So what are we doing? The world recognizes it and our own people see it. So it is what it is. And this is where we are, the state of 2020 today.
Yeah. Well, I as I used to say many years ago, nativism, and you're familiar, well, nativism is this idea that I am here in America and I'm not too keen on other folks, in fact, from other countries getting here. From the day the Pilgrims came here,
or from the day my ancestry got here,
the Mayflower crew thought that anybody that came after them were not as really true settlers than we were. So it's always been okay, and there's always been this tension. Me being Italian American.
The Italians had that going on a couple hundred years, right? 100 years, 125.
All right.
My colleagues, I grew up very close with an Italian. So my friends were the firstborn, and their parents were straight over. Italian, Maria and Rocco. Come on.
Sure.
And the other ones were Irish. So both of them.
And Irish too.
So my colleague told me this.
Right.
His great-grandfather used to tell stories about Irish need not apply.
That's right. So I'm not going to make the statement that America was always the R word. I'm not going to say that. But there's always been a challenge. And today, at least, people are a little bit reticent or about saying that, for fear that they're going to be called racist. Okay, but when I take a look at the way it used to be, and this is not an excuse. I think it's getting better, and I want it to get better. And hey, I said this, I think 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. I'm on the airplane, okay? and I'm on a Delta. I shouldn't mention the airline, but I'm on the Delta flight. Okay, and I'm going to see my grandson and my daughter out in Arizona, and I bump into the pilot, who's a female. I then see two black women flight attendants, and the person in charge of the flight attendants is a gay man. And I'm saying to myself, I remember when I used to fly Pan Am in the 1970s with my father's pass, and I used to fly all around the world for $13, okay, which was what you did. And all there were no female pilots. There were only white women flight attendants, and they were called stewardesses. Right. And I'm saying everybody is screaming and yelling of how we are, you know, how terrible we are. And I'm looking, so it's relative, and there's a lot we got to do. But I ask you to, you know, respect. It's a matter of where you sit in the choir, and what you've seen come through the door, or how many. It's about the experience. Signe, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that you've watched, right, from childhood to today, that we are absolutely growing exponentially in a melting pot environment. Everywhere you turn, it's melting pot, and that's a good thing. Yeah, I can say this, John. When I was in elementary school in Pennsylvania, in Western Pennsylvania, even in New Jersey, in middle school and high school. There was me and one other person that was in my high school that was in my grade that was Asian Indian, South Asian Indian, because I'm talking about Indian. You know, I look at my nieces and nephews. They don't. It's all a rainbow. They don't know. If I were to tell this story, they'd be like, "Where'd you come from?" Mm-hmm. You know. But so there is that. Yeah. So that is obviously just progress, and that's just not going to go away. Perfect example is this. There was a huge, I think this happened twice already this year, where the visa applications for people to come in to the country was trying to be stopped. But since so many people from other countries have to come here to work in all of our corporations, manufacturing, electronics, tech, this, that, surgery, medical, everything. If you did that, you would stop so many people of the workforce would have to leave that is in the production business. MIT and Harvard, so they were going to stop that for the fall semester. Right. So there was a whole group of students that were getting ready to pack their bags and leave. And so MIT and Harvard and then all of a sudden, like 25, and then the next day 50, and then 75 colleges, and then I guess the government said, "Hey, okay, we were just kidding," or whatever they said. But so that's now old news. But look. It's like stopping. Are we stopping though? Are we going to actually freeze the world from going 300? What does it go? 333 miles an hour. The Earth rotates around the sun. We're not going to stop, and we're not going to stop global business from happening. We simply cannot. I don't know any company that's going to say from now on we're not working with any multinationals. Right. I don't know who's going to say, no, I don't want to hear about that kind of money coming into our pockets. That's just never going to happen. People need to work with people. And if we can all understand, working with everybody is the only way to have production and progress and prosperity, the triple Ps, then we can just move on. Yeah. And stop getting. I mean, I remember a time when we didn't have to. Not so long ago, where politics was not an everyday conversation and people lived lives, ate, food on the deck, and never said a word about politics. Please, someone bring us back to that day, because I don't want to talk about politics every hour of every day.
Well, see, as a psychologist, I think part of this political situation that we have is a function of being politically correct, of saying the right thing. So I told you I have a degree in research, and every once in a while, I have to be up for it. I challenge folks that are priests of the global warming theology group. And, as a scientist, you must be skeptical.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so, with that said, my sister made a comment, and I kind of made a critical suggestion that maybe global warming might be hyped or might be more marketing. And she said to me, who has a PhD in mathematics, "Johnny, you're not a denier, are you?" And I said, "Diane, I am not a denier. I am a skeptic, of which scientists are. You may believe in certain theories, but you are skeptical. You are always asking the question whether or not the phenomena exist, because when all is said and done, you don't want to make a type 1 error, saying that there is global warming when in fact there really isn't. Something that your dad, who is a scientist, would in fact, we would agree. He may believe in the theory, but he would say it's a theory. And there may be a lot of data to indicate that that is but it's still a theory. Go ahead.
No, you said a couple of different things. So from a theory standpoint, I love that. Next year when I graduate with this EDM, I'm going to be very small. I'm only going to have a few more batch of credits before I move to and get my PhD, if that's what I so choose to do, which is what I plan to do anyways. I'm just doing it in a smaller bite-sized way. But you also mentioned this conversation, right? And your sister saying, "Are you a denier?" And so, but earlier you said it's something I said. I think we have the reason why we're all being more careful with the way we're saying things, as my generation, which is X, and your generation, right?
Which
is boomer. So that politically correct and the language is a generational thing. It's not really a political thing.
Absolutely beautiful. Go ahead.
So it's not politics, it's generational. You are right. Scientists must always question, otherwise we can't be scientific, and science would not evolve. And then great theories like Abraham and everybody that's ever come up with anything that was said, what they said, and then they were said, "No, you're wrong." 25, 30, 50 years later, oh, wait, they were right. Right? Because we keep pushing. So I don't want to say that it's a politics. I want to say it's a generational thing about the language. And I want to say that we bring it, I'll loop it back into education. If we don't stay inquisitive and constantly are thinking about things, then we allow education to continue to be eroded. And so we need more inquisitive. And the less inquisitive, the less education.
I couldn't agree with you more. But what I see, and having a little bit more time on the planet, as a lot of people, I see that you can't be inquisitive Otherwise, there's a name calling that goes out. And
We got a problem with that, right?
that I see as a old-fashioned liberal. I can't. And now what I do is I am a gadfly, in which when I hear such poppycock, I challenge the person. When I hear all conservatives are blank, okay, or all liberals are blank. I don't like either of those kinds of generalizations, and both are odious and both should be eliminated. Give somebody, don't make fun. I mean, Bette Midler making fun of Melania because she's the wrong party. I I have my whole life I have never made fun of anybody. And you know why? Because I was the chubby guy who had a little bit of a stammer. I was very, very insecure. And it took me to my 50s to get this kind of security and confidence. And even today, I'm now beginning to get a handle on this communications thing, this podcast thing of appearing on TV and not stuttering and not stammering and not being upset. So it bothers me when I see other people making generalizations and doing the same thing that they criticize other people for. It just bothers me. Go ahead.
All right. So I think a lot of what you're saying is Bette Midler, Melania is irrelevant. That's just one out of millions of people that are slumping people into all these categories.
Yes.
And that's a problem. I can say this then. It all starts from the top. It's all about the top leader, a CEO of any company or the president of the United States. How many times have we heard the president say it's those Democrats or it's the fake news? What is the fake news? It's all journalists, right? Or all the ones that he doesn't like. But those are massive organizations. So
what do you think the journalists who are in fact wordsmiths, shouldn't they in fact be teaching him, since he's not a person schooled in politics? He's a salesman, and we know about salespeople how they can in fact be. So I mean, see, that's my point, that there's another way of looking at the issue. It's not just one way, and that's my thing. We're talking here brand talk with Vinay Singh, and another way to talk. And my name is Dr. John Tantillo. You wrote a book, Your Future in Pieces: The Brutal Truth, how ageism and income inequality are destroying America. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, sure. So it kind of highlights a meta trend. And I give you an example about how my career looks. Yeah, when our fathers, everybody's grandparents and parents, it's the ideology that when you get out of college in your 20s and you go move up in your 30s, you get some more experience, you get kids and you have a house. And with your experiences, you move up the ladder, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and then at 60s, you retire. The government picks you up. You ride off into the sunset, into the golden years. Yay, beautiful American dream. Today, ageism has crept into ever younger categories. When I first got into recruiting in the late 90s, people were being discriminated in their mid to early 50s, and they never got back on their feet again. And I was just amazed to see this, because I was like, wait, what are they going to do before they get to 65? Fast forward today, and people are being discriminated at age 35. This is not a joke. Just because you have not seen it doesn't mean it doesn't
Doesn't
occur.
exist. Absolutely.
It is occurring, and it is a fact. So I say, while this ageism, it shouldn't even be called ageism. It's not about older people that are retired. It's about you who is listening. If you're in your 20s, you have a half-life of a career. Boom. Chances are excellent it's going to hit you when you're just so young. And if you're in your 40s, so a perfect example is this. Millennials are not buying homes anymore. So statistics back it up. You love stats and you love research. So I can say what I'm saying, but facts are facts. Millennials are not buying homes anymore. They're staying renting, which means they're not accumulating wealth. They're also not getting married and having children as much. They cost money because wealth generation salaries have not increased for the bottom 80%. So I say, guess what? Now your career is becoming ever shorter, and that works in concert with income inequality never growing, which means it's a V shape to retirement. You're going to move up in your age and then your salary until you hit around 38, 40, and then you're going down for the next 25 years, quarter century. And so the age and wage effect is a new phenomena that has exploded exponentially and is hiding in the secret. No, we don't talk about underemployed people, which is the biggest and the most growing, because recessions occur in the last 50 years once every 5 years, or just in the last 20 years of this new century, 3 brutal global recessions. .com, Great Recession, and whatever this is going to turn out to be, because we're not done here. 2021 is going to be terrible. So this is the age and wage effect. I present this as a demise of the middle class, and policy at the government level is not doing anything about it. We're making retirement even harder to attain, pushing it towards 67, and now there's talk of 70. But at the same time, in the reverse, age discrimination is hitting people in their 40s, 40 to 40, 66%.
Why is that? Wait a minute. Why is that?
Why is what?
Why are the youngins being discriminated against?
So the middle-aged people, right, 38 to 40. So it was 40 to 45. 66% of 40 people, 40 to 45, fear for their career. Jumps to over 90 at 50. 50 is still young because we're all supposed to live to 100 today.
Right.
So if you're 38, you got to be sweating bullets. But if you live in San Fran and New York City, and more cities are becoming discriminatory towards their mid to late 30s, that's what I'm saying. So it's a cut in half. Your careers are cut in half. Why is this happening? This ageist culture? I say for a couple of reasons. Recessions are regularly occurring, and the big meat of the middle of a pyramid of any organization gets chopped. So, but they got to keep the production lines moving. So there's more and more entry-level people getting hired. Yeah. And so where does all that money go to? CEO and executive C-suite compensation is not in line with the bottom 90%, whereas there's been little to no growth. Factually, 78 to today.
And you talk about the top, and I think it should start with sports figures and entertainers. I think that every entertainer should make no more than $1 million a movie. And and like it was in the old days in the 1930s. But you know why that changed? Because they have agents to negotiate, and it behooves agents to get more money for these people, so that if I am asking a certain basketball player to get $50 million, 20% of 50 million is a lot more than 20% of 1 million. You see? So, I mean, I think everybody's got to have a haircut, not only the corporate people, but also the entertaining type people. See, I think everybody's got to get. So it just doesn't start only with one group. It's got to be with all groups. That's the way I kind of see it. But I couldn't agree with you more that corporate people are in fact uh, hitting what I would call the corporate lottery, and
Absolutely.
that their salaries are way too high. But so do I see that with football players. I see that with basketball players. And just because they come from a lower SES social economic status group, that doesn't justify what you're talking about, which is something that we all got to be sensitive to, the disparity between those people that can't get jobs and those people that do have jobs. So I understand exactly what you're saying, but I would want to make sure that it's more equally distributed. I guess it's the scientist in me. Go ahead.
That's what I talk about. Is the fair pay policies. You know, John, you said everybody's got to take a haircut, but let me ask you something. What if X amount of people never got the raise in the first place? They've been trending on 0.2% for the last 40 years. They can't take a haircut because they don't got no hair left. Right. While somebody else has, the size of. So that's just it, right? It is a fact, right? Look, if you haven't gotten a raise in 10 to 20 years, you probably shouldn't be taking a haircut. So, but ultimately, I think we both agree. We need to move into a shared prosperity model. I say it like this: the C class are the ones that have massive stocks, stock shares built into their package. Probably the bottom 90% of every employee organization don't get that built in. But why not? Everybody's got a hand in the production that when they show CNBC, we just announced Apple made $25 billion this quarter.
Right.
Well, all those people that were on the front lines building it, they had a share. I'm not saying they get the same amount.
Right.
They should get something, and they've got nothing.
Right.
And that's
well in the old days when my father was around, he would get a pension, and there were packages for the working class, and then it was the decline of the unions, and here we go. So we could really get into that. But how can we get your book?
My book is available on Amazon.
Okay.
Your Future in Pieces. You put it in the search bar under books. Boom.
And what is it that we got about another minute here? What is it that you want to leave our audience with today before we go?
Sure. If you are an employee that has a long, or it doesn't matter how much more time you have in your career, I can't stress that education and reskilling for what is cutting edge and current in your field is something you should be doing on the side. And there are so many educational opportunities that are free online. So just do it. People need to take the time to do it because, quote, we're all so busy, but yet we have plenty of time to go Facebooking. So
okay, and I don't mean to cut you off. Where can we get you?
On LinkedIn, Vinay Singh. On Facebook, my name again, Vinay Singh. So I'm on Twitter.
Okay. Well, it was really wonderful to have you. I hope you enjoyed the little sparring that we had.
Fantastic, John.
I love talking to you. I could talk all night to you and all day with you.
This has been great.
Thank you so much. And that's it for today. Next week, Brand Talk, another way to talk, right here on Facebook. Take care. Be good. Bye-bye. Go brand yourself.